What's up, cornbread fam? You having a good time? You drinking water? You eating good food? Are you listening to Start Walking? You are contractually obligated to say yes if you're listening to this podcast. It's been really great hearing everyone's feedback about that song and how much people are liking it. Originally this week, I was planning to do a whole episode with Jared Johnson, my producer and collaborator on the track. We recorded 2 hours of material and went into depth about everything about the production process, his experience as a sound guy in Minneapolis, etc. And literally as I was backing up the material from my computer just crashed. My laptop broke completely. It has since been taken into the shop and fixed. Thank you for asking. But yeah, I lost everything from that episode. So I'm planning to do a future episode with Jared and dive in on one of the tracks, talk about the making of a little bit. But for now, I'm very excited. We have a special guest, a cosmic country indie artist that's one of my favorites. I listen to their music anyways, so the fact that I got to talk to them about it and pick their brain about it was super exciting for me. The artist's name is Saguaro, cosmic country, alt country act from the Bay Area. And these guys are real up-and-comers. I've seen them get some radio airplay, some press coverage. They're just starting out, and I have a feeling you're going to want to keep your eye on them the next couple years. So I got to sit down with Jeff Phunmongkol. He's the founder, primary producer, songwriter, country aficionado, and also John Cunningham, who sings with Jeff, co-writes a lot of the tracks, plays guitar, and that's all I have to say about that. Let's dive right into it.
Yeah, we didn't hear any hoopla.
So that's John speaking.
What's up, motherfucker?
Watch yourself there.
And that's Jeff.
Check. Hello.
I want to talk about Truth Be Told because that's definitely one of my favorites of Saguaro. So you co-wrote this and performed this with your sister Jennifer, right, Jeff?
Yeah, it's my sister's song, pretty much. Or I mean, 100% is her song that she had written. And there's actually a version of it that her and I did, like my first Bandcamp, first couple Bandcamp whatever things, but I guess the one that you're hearing on the Saguaro Sol was like the first time that we tried to actually produce it in a sense. But yeah, it's I actually do really like that song too. Like I go through these phases where, and I was talking about it, about this new album, just how like you just get so tired of like hearing like the same thing and you're just like kind of over it, and when you hear it again you're just like, oh, like this song or whatever. But just the other day I was listening to Truth Be Told, and just kind of like, I wouldn't say blown away, but just pretty stoked of the result. It was just my sister's birthday yesterday, and I was hyping her up about it because it's this one of the sickest tracks for sure.
That's great. Yeah, no, I love that track. You have every right to be proud about it. And one of the things I love about it is like, yeah, it has kind of a melancholic feel, but I was saying earlier it's cinematic. This one for me doesn't invoke as much like spaghetti western, but it seems like it should be on an indie movie soundtrack.
Okay.
And I mean, I love that. Like something, I don't know, Juno era, Garden State kind of.
I almost feel like I've heard someone, maybe not say exactly that, but they said something about like, oh, dude, like this should be scored or something.
Yeah, I don't know if I just have a bias because I'm like primarily a film person, so maybe I'm just seeing it through that lens, but it does sound very cinematic, movie centric to me. Was this like the first collaboration that you guys did together, or have you guys always played music together?
I mean, through the years, we would kind of like, she would have like some idea and I'd kind of try to play along to it, but I feel like that was the first time that we really tried to do something beyond just like phone recording or something. She's definitely got some talent there, and I've always tried to encourage her to just weigh in on that, and I think she will continue to do that. Yeah, Truth Be Told was kind of the crux of that EP, in my opinion. I felt like some of my performance performances on that particular track were kind of just a little subpar, and it was just kind of like, let's just get the track, let's just put something down so the track's like complete. But I really do enjoy that song for what it is. I guess some context to that. My folks, we run like a restaurant business, and there was a lady that worked for us, and she was like super cool, and like everyone was like super down with her or whatever. But she just randomly kind of like packed her stuff and like moved and quit from the business. And so the song is kind of about like being naive to the whole like, oh, like anybody can just like, for whatever reason, like they gotta go do what they gotta do, and just like regardless of like how good of a relationship you have with your whatever coworkers or boss or whatever, like you just gotta like leave and do your thing. And I think she wrote that in the lens of like her feeling like not like regretful of the whole thing, but just not really understanding like why like somebody who like seems rooted in a certain situation like would just like have to go do something different, you know, if the situation's already good. But that's kind of how I would try to describe the song, because I feel like from face value or whatever, it's just your typical like kind of like love story sort of thing. But it was more so just like a babysitter caretaker that just like was hanging out with you every day, and then one day just like dips out, and you're kind of just left like, well, what's good with that, or you know, and I don't know. But that's kind of how I would describe that song.
I noticed another one on the album that Jeff, you collaborated with Jennifer and John on, was Terrace Hill, which I really enjoy as well.
We love that track.
I just wanted to ask you about the lineup of Saguaro. So is my understanding that, just to clarify, that was like originally a music project that you were taking on, and you have kind of like a rotating cast of characters that's coming in. But do you feel like it's solidified into something more permanent with these two, or do you like to keep it flexible and it just depends on the song and project?
I think Saguaro at its core is myself and John, and kind of just like our like real close friends. Is kind of like how I'll put it. Jennifer obviously is family, and I always welcome her to play on things when she's comfortable too. We have our buddy Mike, who plays drums a fair amount with us. There's a couple other folks who are kind of also within that circle, but for the most part, and I don't know if it's like an exclusive thing, but John and I have kind of like built up like this bank of songs or things that we've played through the couple years.
It started as like Jeff's the musical genius here. Had tracks in his head, or like tracks built up over time. We like jammed together. I moved out to the East Bay, started jamming with him, and like we had some tracks together. Jeff's like, oh, let's put these tracks in together and make Saguaro. And then we just kept jamming from there. Buddies would like come, our buddy Mike would play drums, whatnot, and then like Jeff generally runs everything around like the everything from like social media, communication, like mixing, producing, all that, or like shit is Jeff. So I just show up for the jam and play.
And brings beers.
Yeah, and brings beers.
That's a crucial role, to be fair.
But I mean, we've talked about like trying to do a like a Saguaro live band, and I'm sure it will happen. We're just both kind of like, I wouldn't say skeptical of it, but it's just a little, you got to formulate the band obviously, and sometimes doing that is a whole exercise in itself. And the music that I don't know, a lot of the music we produce kind of like after the fact, and so it's a little hard to kind of try to put together a band and then figure out like, all right, who's gonna play like that part or who's gonna do this and that, and but yeah, I mean, at its core, it's myself and John, and then we got like a couple close friends who will feature on some of the tracks and stuff.
You want to shout them out?
Mike, the fucking homie. Jen, the fucking homie.
The homie Justin Lascano played on some of the cover songs, and it's very noticeable between my shitty drumming versus Justin. On this new album, we'll definitely have a bit more of some appearances is my goal, but yeah, so it's really just a passion production project that one day we hope we can roll out and play some shows and stuff.
We're just chilling in the garage post work.
Yeah, we love making the music, and it's honestly like, to me, it's insane when like people hit me up and they're like, oh, I like that song. And it's like, you like that song, man? Like I was like so like conflicted about putting that song out or whatever. To me, it's really rewarding. So I enjoy just like trialing an idea out and just seeing how people like it and stuff. So
Well, that's the thing. You never really know what's going to resonate with people or not. But I certainly hope you guys form a live band, because there's already an audience for it there, and I think it would be big. I'm sure there's enough popular or worthy musicians in the Bay Area that would be up for the task. Speaking of collaborators, I wanted to talk about, like I said, there's a cinematic through line with the album artwork as well, but I wanted to focus specifically on Saguaro Sol. So you had Walker Lambert design the cover. Was this a thing where you had a specific image in mind and you told this person how to execute it, or did they come in with something kind of out of the blue and you liked it?
probably the latter. I mean, Walker is also one of my dear homies. Shout out.
Walker, the boy.
Walker is part of the band. He is a business partner at the end of the day. Yeah, he's a graphic designer.
I wish he played instruments.
Yeah, I've tried to ask, but he's like, nah.
I could do tambo or something.
That cover was kind of just super random. We hiked out this little trail, and he brought this little stool that he made in woodshop class back in middle school, and I sat on it. But some of our friends were giving me grief because they were like, "Oh, is John E. Soul? Like, where's John? Like, why isn't John in the freaking photo?" And I was like, "Fuck, you're right." It was kind of just random, and the only thing that we had kind of discussed or I had an idea on was just like, let's just I'm gonna bring a guitar out and let's just take a photo out on some hillside. And he had like I forget if it was an Olympus or what kind of a 35 millimeter camera, but I took a couple pictures and then just chose one and just kind of ran with it. And Walker kills it, and I trust everything he does. So yeah.
I wanted to talk about another one on that album. I Know You Don't Love Me Anymore. Do you usually program your drums with MIDI, or are you recording an actual drum set in your setup there?
It's an actual drum set, and I'm not a drummer by any means. For Truth Be Told and I Know You Don't Love Me Anymore, I recorded those live drums, no MIDI drums. There are some tracks where we have some guest stars play drums on, and we can talk about those too. But for the most part, doing the live drums there.
It's not like anything crazy complicated, but I feel like country drums just needs that. You just have to lay down a bass, and it sounds good enough to where I was sure it was MIDI'd out. So that's awesome that you're doing it the old school way.
Wow, thank you. I was playing straight as a MIDI.
One of the things I really love about this one is I feel like it taps into a lot of like old school country lyricism. So I know you mentioned Grateful Dead as one of your gateways into country and Graham Parsons, but are there any others from that era, any time from 50s to 70s, that inspired the lyricism and themes that come up on songs like You Don't Love Me Anymore?
It's a darn good question. And I think this was after that, but I was listening to some Marty Robbins and I guess like Ernest Tubb and Eddie Arnold. But I think that was that might have been after that album. There was a summer where I just really went into this like period of like more of that traditional, not really pop country, but like in terms of like the 60s, like what was like being marketed or like played on the airwaves and stuff. That was either the summer before we like did Saguaro Sol or the summer afterwards. I'm not really entirely sure, but yeah, that song actually was one of the songs that I had written back in college, and it was kind of about like just silly college crushes or whatever. But over the years, like you can obviously readapt meanings to other relationships and other things. I'd always honestly like, I wouldn't say I hated playing that song, but it was just like, it was one of two songs I always, if there was like some open mic or some thing and they were like, play a song, I would play that song. So it was almost in a sense an easy track to do because I was like, I already know the song. I'll just like, never had really tracked things like properly. And so that was the first time I did it in a DAW. But in terms of the influence, I don't know if you got anything to weigh in there, John. I know it was kind of more of a song that just came out of the wayside.
I mean, I've actually never played that song with Jeff.
Yeah, we never play that song. So maybe that's something we got to work on.
Just because it was something you've already played at enough open mics that you're sick of it, or?
That, and I mean, it wasn't a song that we wrote together. It won't take much to teach John how to play the song, but it's just like...
brings up bad memories.
It's not part of the repertoire, I guess. And yeah, what he said too, sure.
I was so curious and intrigued by the name Saguaro and Psychiatry Records. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what the origin of the names are.
At least the first little EP, like they were kind of just tracks that we either jammed and like made up together, or like I guess a few of those tracks were some older songs that I had written through the years, but I felt like we had enough music to put out, and so I just sort of forced myself to figure out a name that would be clever. You know, I didn't want to make something that was like my personal name because it wasn't a representation of like the fact that we wrote the music or produced it together. I don't know, we're big Mapache fans. I wouldn't say it's a straight rip off Mapache, but we're like, oh, let's just like call it something simple, but just in Spanish, you know, which is maybe not like what they were going after, because there is that 70s kind of heavy rock band called Cactus. And I was like, well, we're not going to call ourselves Cactus. And I don't know, the name Saguaro just kind of seemed like it just had like a nice, it's like a nice amount of syllables, and it doesn't sound like too like insane, and it rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Maybe John was swindled into it. We just kind of just settled on that because we didn't really have any other ideas, I guess. Or
I showed up one day and Jeff was like, I got this name, Saguaro. And I was like, Saguaro?
Saguaro?
I also made that mistake because I had never heard that word before, so I was like, oh, it's Saguaro. You know, I listened to a lot of Latin music, so I was convinced like, oh, this country group, it's really cool. They got to be from like Bolivia or Argentina or something. And then I look and I was like, wait, it's a Thai guy from Bay Area, California with the Spanish name doing country songs. So I was like, I was so confused. But, you know, the music delivers, so you guys could name it whatever the hell you want. And then Psychiatry Records.
I originally was calling it the Orinda Psychedelic Society. I don't know, it was like my made-up radio show / like, we're the Psychedelic Society, we're into like all this cool music, blah, 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 whatever.
That's like definitely a show that the Grateful Dead would be on back in the day.
Yeah, but when it came time to like putting out the music, I paid the extra couple bucks to be able to like not put the music out under like a DistroKid number. I pronounce it Psychiatry Records, so it's like Psychedelic Society, but like chopped in half.
I love that. I hope it becomes a legitimate record operation at some point and not just fictitious.
It would be cool. I just know nothing about running a record label or a company because that's way over my head, and I don't know if I'm ready for that right now. We'll just keep making the music.
I understand how you guys got into country music originally and like the Bay Area connection, but how did you start with playing steel guitar specifically as an instrument?
We had a buddy who was really into Dwayne Allman, and he was a bit of a guitar hero, and he would play with like a glass slide and stuff. And so like that was like the first time like I was around someone who was like actively like trying to play slide. And shout out Ben Hag if you're listening.
The boy.
Over time I picked up like playing slide on like a regular guitar, open tuning or just regular tuning. I think I had like one or two different lap steels over the years, and then eventually just stomached the investment to get like an actual pedal steel guitar. And then I lent John a lap steel for summer when he was up in Grass Valley. I know he ripped that thing up he was staying in a little trailer.
Ripped it up, but mostly just made me appreciate Jeff's touch.
I don't even know what the entry level is, if it's hard to pick up the first bits, but I feel like there's a big leap between not knowing anything and then like the people who play are really good. There's a big divide there.
Yeah, there definitely is. I'm constantly humbled every day.
For me, like I don't really associate the Bay Area with country music. So I'm really curious to hear more about how that started. What was the first country song you fell in love with?
Hank Williams, I Saw the Light.
That's a great pick.
Classic grandma tape song, riding through San Bernardino County in the Cadillac.
Wait, Hank Sr., I'm assuming, not Junior.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. I would put that on in her car, and then she'd say, turn that off. That reminds me of your grandpa. I fell in love with that song.
Yeah, musics are so heavy with memory.
I don't even know. I'm sure I heard all kinds of stuff as a kid. Maybe some Graham Parsons or something. I kind of got into country in a weird... Didn't hear like traditional country first.
Like you heard more like radio country, stadium country in the background, and maybe it turned you off at first?
Yeah, maybe that was the case, and then somehow got into that 70s kind of country rock sort of stuff, and then you kind of just, trace your steps back. John and I, we went to college together. We really bonded listening to like some of like the Grateful Dead studio albums versus like their live stuff.
And that's Bay Area country right there.
Stuff like American Beauty and like Working Man's Dead. That was like probably, and I know it's not really an early memory, but to me that's like kind of where I shifted in terms of having musical intent, or I guess just being inspired and like I want to make music like this, or I don't know, it seems accessible and like, yeah, that's almost Cocoa County or country, excuse me.
We would listen to like the Grateful Dead country stuff. And then we went into like the Creedence country stuff, also Bay Area. At that point, we were like, holy shit, like there's all these Bay Area like rock and rollers like doing country. And I think that kind of inspired us to some extent.
Yeah, that's great. I guess there is more Bay Area country heritage than I initially thought, because I know the Dead is like a big entry point for a lot of people for country rock, psychedelic country, alt country. Jeff, I wanted to suggest something too, or ask you about it, because I noticed that you had a playlist on your artist profile on Spotify that was something SpongeBob related. And I feel like for me as a kid, probably a lot of the first times I heard pedal steel, that like weird Hawaiian country old school sound, was watching SpongeBob. So do you think that subconsciously had any effect on you?
I'm sure it did. I mean, the thing with the slide guitar, when we listen to certain popular music or songs, like you don't think about things until you actually see it or know that it's like what that instrument is. Hearing like Sleepwalk by Santo and Johnny like a million times, just like through the years in SpongeBob. Yeah, you just hear that. I think it's Jeremy Wakefield was the like writer for most of that stuff. Maybe what SpongeBob has done is subconsciously subdued everybody to the steel guitar.
Yeah, it's like a weird niche, because I think, they were tapping into kind of like a 50s Hawaiian kind of tropical sound, but that also has the overlap because of the instrumentation, like dobro, with what I think of with like 40s, 50s country music.
I feel like the thing too about the slide and steel guitar is that it's like a really historical like instrument. I feel like people always talk about how the steel guitar came from like Hawaii and like, but it was like folks like that were stationed out there back in the day, and then like they'd bring back these like weird contraptions and then start mechanically messing with them and stuff. But then it starts appearing into music, in like country music or swing music, and I just call it historic, but it's made an impression more than like I think the general public realizes. SpongeBob's cool, and that Bikini Bottom playlist, I guess I don't really know where like I started with it. I was just trying to put together tracks that compelled me, and it's a fine line between your traditional bandstand country music and then some of that swing stuff that kind of falls into that Hawaiian and C6 tuning.
I wanted to talk to you about Plays the Hits, because when I saw that name, it cracked me up. I mean, a lot of the album covers I feel like are iconic, not in the sense that like, millions of people would recognize it, but just in the sense that like it's a very specific style. And for me, like I've been listening to you guys for a couple months at least, and so it was a big playlist of lo-fi country stuff, and whenever that cover came up, whatever song it was, I would instantly recognize it. But what I love about Plays the Hits is like when I saw that, I was like, wait, was this like a group from decades ago? And it's like, this is the reunion track. Maybe they just don't have a lot of stuff on Spotify or only recently. But, then I started digging into it, and I heard San Francisco and Summer Breeze, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's like existing hits. It's like other hits. So what was the motivation and inspiration behind this record? What made you want to do one that was just covers? Because you guys are very capable songwriters.
Well, I mean, just to put it out there, it hasn't come out yet, but I think hopefully this summer, I think it's going to come out. There's this individual out in the UK named Mark who does Torn and Frayed. He he found us, I think, through Bandcamp tag of Cosmic Country or something or rather, and I just I talked to him, and I guess he put a song on one of his playlists or something, and he offered us to, if we wanted to do a cover song for this little compilation, and we were like, yeah, we're down. And there was a Help Yourself song on there, and I was I'm a big fan of Help Yourself, and we just so we just tried to do that track, and in recording that and trying to do it, it kind of sparked this idea of let's just do like a covers thing, because there are a couple songs that John had like kind of brought to the table, Miller's Cave and then East Virginia Blues, that kind of during that era of like trying to like just be able to play a song together like on the spot, those two, or Miller's Cave and East Virginia Blues, kind of came about, and we just kind of they sort of became like our warm-up songs in a way, and we were like, why not just try to record our version.
Wait, so you said you're a big fan of Help Yourself. I'd never heard of the band before, and to be honest, I feel like they have a decent notoriety, but it's like a fairly deep cut. They're not hugely popular. So how did you come across their music in the first place?
I don't remember, honestly. I feel like I probably either it was some random like Spotify radio thing or a YouTube. The YouTube's got some good recommendations. Over the years, it's changed for sure, but I feel like I might have just stumbled on it somewhere and was like, what's this like 70 like underground 70s band that has this weird like, I wouldn't necessarily call it like American like country sound, but it like definitely fit into that like kind of genre of like whatever the neo hippie stuff, or not neo hippie stuff, but neo country stuff during the hippie era. But they're from the UK. So definitely kind of random. But it just kind of, I don't know, when Mark was like, yo, like you guys want to do a song for this thing, and he had like a list of songs that he had in mind. Not like necessarily like limited to that, but just like right off the bat, I was like, yeah, we could do that song. Like that song's fun to play, and we learned it like in an afternoon. And I think we played it for like an hour straight, just trying to get it down.
And for Your Eyes Are Looking Down, which is a collaboration between you guys, were there any different emotions you were trying to evoke that you felt weren't emphasized enough in the original?
I feel like the arrangement we did, I could have, we could have redacted it a bit, because I felt like I tried to really play it out like on the original recording, where it had like 2 or 3 instrumental sections, and we probably could have condensed it a little bit more. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm always trying to experiment with harmonies, and I'm always trying to like sing harmony and like the lead vocal at the same time. But sometimes, it's can't really do both.
When we played it, we tried to make it a little more country than the original version.
Yeah, I guess
Like a little acoustic country style, and I feel like it kind of worked out, but also, held its roots.
You're trying to make it country, which, I understand. You said with the projects, you're trying to think of it as a whole being and come up with these through lines. With country music and the things that are associated with that, whether it's sadness or storytelling or honesty, was there anything you wanted to bring out of that track by making it country?
I mean, I think we just wanted to give it a little like Saguaro twang to it,
like you were kind of saying, like Help Yourself is definitely a deep cut, but if you're in the know, I wouldn't say like that deep of a cut, and that sounds so contentious. But and just like with the other songs that we like arbitrarily picked for the covers EP, we kind of just were like, yeah, it'd be in a way like almost a troll to do San Francisco or Summer Breeze in the style that we play our music, but then also just like totally own that and try to just make it sound cool but still recognizable. Was I don't know, that kind of the idea, the overarching idea of the whole covers thing. I feel like Miller's Cave and East Virginia Blues, like we sort of kind of played it, traditionally in a sense, but also just added some things here and there that was more natural for us. But I don't know. That's a deep question there.
When I say play country, I just mean like we'll play it like acoustic and like sing it how we normally sing it, which is like the easy way out for us, but it's also, it's our own, it's like how we do it. It's our style.
Right. It's kind of like the idea of, when there's a discussion around great artist steal, the thinking is that whenever you recreate something with your own lens, it's inherently going to be different because it's you doing it. And I definitely hear that with the tracks here, making it its own Bay Area country style thing. And I love that you guys included San Francisco and Summer Breeze, because they do have like a certain meme quality. They're all great songs. San Francisco, I feel like, had more of a boost in the last decade from Last Black Man in San Francisco, that A24 movie, and then Summer Breeze, kind of an iconic yacht rock track. So when you guys are co-writing, usually is there like a specific split where one of you will handle the instrumentation and the other the lyrics, or is it more freeform?
Sometimes it depends, I guess. I feel like for the most part, we're trying to sort of triage, like, all right, like what's this like verse gonna be, or how do we how do we communicate X idea or whatever. But sometimes, we'll like John will have like a whole verse that we kind of like try to like, we'll like look at him like, okay, like, can we spread that out more, or can we like change this? And so it really just kind of depends. Like, I feel like it's never like on a given song, like John's doing all this and then I'm doing all this other part. I feel like we're always kind of like proofreading it together in a way.
Yeah, it's pretty, I'd say, collaborative on the spot, but then like once we like get through a verse or something, maybe we'll let it sit for a while and then go back and revise it. But yeah, generally just in the garage, like we got a like progression going, and then we're like, what the hell is like this song about? And then maybe like I already have like a verse or a lyric, and then Jeff's like, oh, like, yeah, this is what I'm thinking it is. And then I'll be like, yeah. And then I'll throw some on there, and, you know, kind of just builds from there. But it is different for each song.
That's nice that it sounds like it's pretty harmonious. You know, there's no Eagles band members bickering or like bitter disputes, because people have different visions, and so sometimes it can be hard to unify that. But it seems like it's pretty easy for you guys. It comes naturally.
Like I was saying earlier, like we never really like intended on like oh, we're gonna like make Saguaro like a project. It kind of just like, we had always like in college. Well, what happened was, I had met John through a friend, like some friends who were roommates with John, and then, you know, everybody, we're all, or at least my friends that I met through John there were some skateboarders, and we all kind of played music and whatever, and so that was kind of how we like first like met and just started like, oh, like you jam, like, okay, cool, you play this, whatever, and like, yeah, come over and we'll play, blah blah blah, and so we just always like, there's something about like, sure, you could jam with whoever, but I feel like there's certain people who like, you just have like a good, you can just sonically communicate with each other, which is something that can't always happen with folks, like regardless of like how good you or the other person is, like being able to kind of just like play play ball together or whatever.
Yeah, what helps is that Jeff also basically taught me like how to play guitar, like beyond like beginner stuff, I'd say. And then from there it was like, okay, I know how Jeff plays, like I'll play like that. And then like lyrics wise, like we're both, I feel like, pretty like not really writers, so we kind of just like start spitballing, and then we're like very easy going.
A lot of times that's the best way to go, just because, you know, if you try to sit down and force it and go, this is my song and it's really important and I'm going to write it, it just doesn't work. You know, like the best stuff is a little bit subconscious and comes out naturally, I think. Jeff, I noticed that you're really involved in skateboarding, not just as a skateboarder, but also, like, I saw that you were making skateboarding videos and music videos on like YouTube in the 2000s, like during the early primal years. So I'm curious what effect that culture had on you, whether it be like Spike Jonze music videos or skate videos or the music of that era.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a very devout skateboarder, and I would totally say that a lot of the music that I'm into now, like I wouldn't have, you know, maybe have had like a initial, I wouldn't say a jump start, but like maybe have heard of a song from a certain band because it was in like some video, or it was in some guy's part or whatever. And so I think what skating has done for me is that it just kind of exposed me to a lot of different music earlier on, and then as time went on and I found what I liked, I started realizing more like, oh, like that song was in that video, or like, oh, that's this album that I'm really into, like I actually know that other song that was in whatever. And so I think if anything, yeah, it just kind of opened a door earlier on, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of folks, at least that are in skating, like can relate to finding music just from watching skate videos. There's like a whole community at one time where people were just like playing like games of skate over the internet, which was like incredibly silly, but I don't know, it was just kind of funny how YouTube was a thing and people were posting videos all the time, and I guess it still is a thing, but I just kind of stopped doing that, and maybe just out of like not having a computer that I can edit silly videos and put them out, but yeah, it's I still will go back and watch some old stuff here and there, and it's cool. Just the other day, I was actually looking at this old hard drive with a bunch of old footage that brought back some good memories for sure. But yeah, I mean, I know John grew up kind of skating a little bit too, and all our homies in college, we were all skaters, and it's kind of how we all initially met. But yeah, so I mean, I do owe a lot to skateboarding, as much as like I'm not pro, dude. Definitely not pro.
You said there's a culture there. I saw that you have like 1,000 subscribers, which like on YouTube is a lot. And, you know, I've been posting for a while, and like, you know, a lot of fan music videos. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, that was it is kind of crazy. There's still the subscribers there, but I feel like all those folks are like, they're not even on YouTube anymore. I remember Beatrice Demond, or I'm not saying her name right, but she's like pro for FA now. And I think at the time when like YouTube, when I was on, me and my like friends in middle school were on YouTube and stuff, like she was like in that circuit or circle of like, you know, YouTube people. But yeah, it's just crazy to think about. But just the way YouTube has evolved over the years.
One of the things I really love about your guys' music, between the album artwork and the lyrics, is that I feel like all of it has a very cinematic quality, specifically like in terms of spaghetti westerns and like old America. But I'm curious, what are some of the most influential movies for each of you?
I mean, all the classic like rock and roller ones. Dazed and Confused. Jeff and I, we love Easy Rider. When I picture Saguaro, I do picture like motorcycle in like New Mexico, cactus, like everyone just cruising.
I took a like a history of film music class, and I think that opened the door to like a lot of like more so like ambient stuff.
Yeah, but that makes so much sense because I see it there in the music.
I really liked and whatever, people will say what they think about Taxi Driver, but I really liked
Bernard Herrmann.
Maybe it's subconsciously inspiring of Saguaro. But yeah, I guess the idea of like making music that is describing something beyond.
Yeah, like this fictional film of Cocoa County.
Cocoa Country, boy.
Some respect on the name. I feel like the song where I saw that the most, which was one that you guys co-wrote together, was Whistleblow. What were some of the sonic inspirations there? Was it primarily cinematic, or were there other specific bands from that era that you were thinking about when you were writing this track?
We were playing these guitars that were down-tuned like 5 half steps. We were playing like a D-shaped chord, but it was like a fifth down, so that makes it like an A or whatever. I feel like in the moment when we wrote the song, we didn't have like a track that we were imagining. We figured out the arrangement and then like kind of recorded it out, and then slowly we're like, okay, like what's the next easiest thing to just like slap on this and just kind of like just watch the track kind of become its own thing.
When I think of that track, I think of us out in San Luis Obispo where we went to college. At the train station, we had some friends that would like hop trains or fantasize about hopping trains, and like
the house I lived at dead ended and it ran into like the train track.
Where we started jamming was like right next to the train tracks, and like I just think of all of our like friends all into the beatnik scene and whatnot, and in my mind we wrote that song for them, like like that's what I think of.
There's like 2 people in particular, the Train Curious folks.
You want to shout them out or leave it anonymous?
I know at least one of them would prefer we left it anonymous.
Anonymous. But San Luis Obispo is also like a countryside kind of place with like just rolling like golden hills, and like the trains just, you know, cruise through, and You get every once in a while like this train wander running through town who's like asking you like where the hell they are or something.
I just love that so much for the songwriting because it's a theme that's so quintessentially American. The town I grew up in Montana was also made as a train town, and so we had so many people there in the summer coming in like hobos, hopping off the train and just playing music for a week and leaving, or just fantasizing about hopping the train and the tension there with law enforcement. So it's definitely a world I'm familiar with too.
Yeah, no, I still fantasize about Jeff and I playing some acoustic tracks by the like train tracks sitting there, but those days are gone.
You never know. There's some imagery potential there for video or Twitch stream or whatever it is.
Exactly. TikTok,
I want to talk more about Whistle Blow, and specifically the version off the Acoustics record you did, aptly named Acoustic. You guys co-wrote this together. What was the thinking behind wanting to make an acoustic version and re-release some of the songs that were out there? What different things in those songs did you want to emphasize with these versions?
A lot of the times when we're like drafting out a track, we usually try to at least be able to do it live together, like two acoustic guitars just like singing in a room, and then we'll try to track it with like four different mics, like each singing, each acoustic guitar, and whether it's like a scratch or we just end up using that as the base of the song. That's kind of like our baseline in terms of like, all right, like how do we like get a song like lined out to like figure out what to do on it. And I feel like at the time we were just really like playing the songs like live. Sometimes like we'd go through phases of like one person would track the guitar and then we would just do overdubs over it. But we were going through a period of like, let's like actually like play through the song. Like if somebody were like, here's like two guitars, play like something, and like actually just like be able to play something. So we were kind of going through like a period where we're just like, let's just like play the song how we would if we had to play it live, kind of thing. And I believe on all those 3 tracks on the acoustic thing, we just recorded with like a single like condenser mic in the room, and that was literally it. But we kind of just like did it for shits. And I plugged in this condenser mic. It was like through this Tascam mixer board that we always use, and just directly into like a cassette deck, and then just recorded just a stereo recording of us just playing the track. And so, but we did that just out of the blue, and we're like, yeah, I'll just record it with no intention of doing anything really with it. And then I think I was just bored one day, just listening back to some stuff, or I was just cleaning things around and just whatever. And then I was like, these sound pretty good, and we could like put them out if we want to. And luckily there were a couple good takes of a couple tracks, so I was like, why not just, I don't know, I just felt like we hadn't like put anything out for a little bit, so we just like, let's just, I don't know, just do it, I guess. And they're super rough in my opinion, but
a lot of our songs we just like, we come up with the song and then we'll record them and we'll just start like tracking them out, and then we get it all done, and then like weeks later we'll play it a few more times and we'll play it acoustic, and we'll just be like, or like for these we were like, oh, it sounds kind of sick acoustic. And then hopped in, we're like, oh yeah, like this is like even sicker acoustic.
Is this all at home or in live shows?
As Saguaro, we've never played like an actual gig just because of the way that everything's been produced and recorded.
I've like never played a gig in my life, basically.
Some of the songs we write while we're producing, and then we come back to it like trying to like play it live, but it's like we have to like adapt it in a live setting, and if that makes sense, because sometimes like we just like have like a guitar riff or like jam that we like whatever we arrange, and then we come back with like a set of lyrics later, and then like try to play it as a group and sing it at the same time. And so it's a little, I don't know, just like sometimes a little backwards, or sometimes it's the other way around, or I don't know.
One of the things I really love about this song is the chord progression is really unique. Like usually country music, people say it's three chords and the truth. There's like sonically can be a lot of repetitiveness. But this one kind of blew me away because the chords are a lot different. It's I don't know if I would say like jazzier or just incorporating a lot of different genres there sonically, but then still like with the lyrics and the vocal delivery, it has a lot of country elements. Just as terms of like the chord progressions and sound, was there any specific inspiration there?
When we were writing it and producing it, I was just trying to like, when the chorus hit, I was just like, let's just make it big. Was like what I was telling John, I guess. And because yeah, on the chorus it's just like or when it's tuned down, it's an A shape, so I guess that's really an E chord.
The chorus is pretty standard.
I had my whatever composer hat on, thinking like, all right, like make it big but keep it simple. That's, I guess, how we did it like on the first EP. But like when we did it like just live, it was kind of just like, I don't know. I guess it's a little different because I'm singing the harmony. John's like singing like the main lead vocal, and so we're really just kind of like writing out the song while we're trying to sing along. Sing is a challenge for sure.
One of the things I wanted to ask you guys too about the vocals there was, with this project, you guys have a Dylan-esque tendency to take on different personas, I feel, between the songs. So, like, I hear on some of the songs, like, your more, like, natural speaking voice or singing voice coming through. And then on this one, there's kind of like a thick Southern accent. It's like, seems like it's telling a story from old America about the trains. So with the delivery there, what was the motivation behind it?
That's tough. Whistleblow, was probably the first song I sung of like our tracks, I'd say.
I feel like that was also one of the first songs we were like found the hack, the formula, but it was just like, have a song idea. I don't know, it was like the first time it manifested in terms of like, if you have the progression and like the idea of like, all right, this could be a song, and have it chunked out in a certain way, that it's totally doable.
A lot of the like influence behind that song came from like just like the starting lyric, like howdy, howdy, howdy. Like for some reason I came up with that on the spot, and then at that point it was like, all right, this song's like gonna be like that country like Train America style song. So just kind of rolled with it. The persona kind of formed from there, I'd say.
The last track I wanted to discuss with you guys is The Weatherman off of Canyon Ranch Cool. So in terms of the project as a whole, what made you want to release a B-sides record a couple months after the first one was out, instead of just combining it into some big 16-track album?
Well, I feel like Canyon Ranch Cool was kind of almost a different approach to recording in a way. I feel like the first EP was slightly more traditional, like, all right, here's a song, whether it was me and John worked it out or if it was one of my old songs or me and Jennifer's song or whatever. Canyon Ranch Cool was kind of a result of what a lot of those tracks are is me, John, and then our buddy Mike Young. We'll link up like once we were linking up like once a week, and I'm still pretty new to recording and all that stuff, but I would just like set everything up with the DAW, but then also like we would just jam things and kind of catalog ideas, and then it just got to a point where we had like enough different ideas that we were like, oh, this is like a song we could like write into a song or something. So what ended up happening was that a lot of those tracks were like jams that had a start and a finish, and then we just kind of were like, okay, like let's just write a verse and a chorus and and that was kind of it. But I guess that doesn't really explain Weatherman specifically, but for a lot of the songs on Canyon Ranch Cool, it was they were recorded live, and then we did some overdubs later to fill the song out. But that's the main difference with that second EP, and I guess it serving more as like a B-side because we just sort of like reviewed the tracks later, I guess, and wrote songs and stuff. I don't know.
Jeff like had his vision for the first one, and then like we still had all these extra tracks, and he was like, "Fuck it, let's just put all these out too, or let's just make them into something." Yeah.
I know you said that for the Dead, your big influences were their studio albums, but given that you said these were created from jam sessions, do you feel like their style of jam rock or their live recordings had any influence on that?
I would say maybe a little bit. I mean, I got to give it up to John because I feel like a lot of that Canyon Ranch Cool stuff where we did live were just riffs that John just had kind of like in his back pocket, and Mikey was on the drums, and then I either was playing support guitar or bass, and then just came in and did some stuff later. But that honestly could be the case because they were all kind of different ideas that just evolved into sort of like an orchestration with us three, you know.
I mean, it all came from the jam for sure. Like, I feel like we learned and like grew up as in like played through college just jamming around. And then that kind of just taught me how to just, you know, come up with a little riff to like play in the jam. And then from there, those songs kind of formed. Never did I ever think they'd be like recorded songs. They were just more on the spot, like for the sense of playing in the garage.
Well, they're probably better because of it. You know, I feel like sometimes mentally when you take the pressure off of like, oh, well, this isn't going to be a thing, I'm just kind of doing this for me, then it frees you up to create some of the most interesting stuff you have.
I'm all about like just playing to play, and then, you know, if you want to take it further, you can, but otherwise just like jam it out.
So on Weatherman, you guys are both co-writers on this song, and one of the things I love about it is it has specifically for me a certain spiritual quality, not just in terms of like the nature imagery, but there's several lines like "Take it up with the powers above, leave it up to time to tell you." It almost like shows a little bit about the guiding philosophy behind the writers. So I'm curious if, for either of you, your own personal conception of spirituality affected the songwriting.
With Terrace Hill, we mentioned that we were playing with the guitar tuned down five half steps. This song was tuned down 4 half steps, which doesn't really mean anything, but at the time, that's kind of like what in our heads, like because we were playing very similar chord progressions or like similar chords, but we were just like, oh, let's tune it up a half step. So it's like a little different. But I don't know. Yeah, this song, we kind of were just imagining like, and I guess that time didn't really have any drastic weather, but I just, in my head, I was trying to just convey like the life of a freaking meteorologist and how like, you turn on the 10 o'clock news and you got a guy in a suit telling you what's going to happen for the next couple of days. And, you know, just the kind of lifestyle that they would live, you know, they got like a shift and then they got to go back to wherever they live.
But in the end, nothing they say matters because nature just rules all.
Exactly. It is kind of an out there track, in my opinion, but we some of our friends have told us that like they really like that, and it's definitely a surprise when people are I don't know. I'm not bagging the track, but like in the moment we're just kind of like, yeah, it's about a meteorologist and nature. Yeah, like John said, nature kind of governs, regardless of like what your satellite maps tell you and historical data will tell you. But yeah, people are like, yeah, I like that song. It's like, cool. And then later I found out freaking Hank Williams Jr.'s got the same freaking song title, but it's not the same song.
Right. I knew that one first. It is kind of cool that you approached it from a more literal stance, because I feel like specifically with country songs, a lot of times just a description, vivid imagery of certain slices of life can produce some of the most profound stuff. And, it might have not been your personal favorite, but it was certainly my favorite from the album, and that's why I selected it.
Right on. Thank you.
I want to close it out by asking some questions about the future of the project and your releases. But really quickly, you got me thinking with the Truth Be Told thing, because that was such a, I don't know, it was a left turn. Like, I've heard that song a couple dozen times by now, and I would not have guessed that backstory at all. Are there any other tracks in your discography that have an unexpected backstory?
So a lot of the Canyon Ranch Cool stuff is kind of fictional. Out where I'm from, in the East Bay, there's a place called Canyon, which is like this unincorporated zone between the small town of Moraga and then more known Oakland. But in the 70s, Canyon was kind of like this place that I guess a bunch of hippies kind of retreated to, and I guess where I'm from, Orinda, like it was kind of like not like a vacation area, but just like more so ranchy and like not so much developed, at least back a couple decades. And so the idea with Canyon Ranch Cool is that it was like this fictional like saloon, I guess. And so a lot of the songs were kind of like based around this idea of like the Canyon Ranch Cool is like this local saloon where all the folks hung out. And some of the songs are they kind of wrap around that theme. Like Scrimmage is kind of about like getting to a scuffle down at the freaking saloon. Where Do I Go is also kind of related to the saloon, just like getting too fucked up and you're like not able to get home or something.
That's so impressive to me because, for something that you yourself are labeling as a B-side tracks to the original EP, to have, like what is basically a concept album with the name and all these different aspects of that and kind of a theme. I love that. And I also feel like what you've just described summarizes cosmic country as a whole, and also Saguaro, because when I think of cosmic country and what you guys are tapping into and a lot of the music that I like, I do think of Easy Rider and basically that vibe of the freedom of the American West and, the 70s, that style. So it's cool that you guys are tapping into that. What's your primary goal right now with your music?
For me, is have fun. Jeff may be different, but I don't know. I just like coming and playing with Jeff, seeing what we can do, seeing what we can make happen. I mean, it's like it's all just it's for the fun of us, but then also like anyone who likes listening to it, it's for them too.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Saguaro, for whoever's listening and actually like interested, we've got like an album we're trying to wrap up, and it'll be out this year at some point. But I mean, I think it's just gonna be a self-titled album. We might have a name for it, but I think we're trying to. The idea with this is that we want it to be a quote unquote more serious, and I'm having a friend mix and master it, and everything thus far has just been self produced and self-released, and so I kind of wanted to I wanted to make a decision to spend the extra money to ensure the artifact is, it's quality, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with John. This is all fun at the end of the day. But when we start kind of recognizing like the feedback and the amount of like support we get from like our peers, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe we should like try to like get a live set together or whatever. And but life gets in the way of things, obviously, but that won't change the fact that we'll always find time to like make music and do things like that. And I'll always make time to like play music with friends, just because like that's kind of what keeps the world spinning and stuff. So that's kind of like how I would put it. But I mean, yeah, like I said, we're hoping to get a self-titled album out probably late summer is what I'm thinking at this point. And maybe playing some shows in the future, but that's not really it's not on the agenda right now.
I know you said you haven't really seen many of your press appearances or appearances on the interwebs before, but I'm curious if you saw the write-up that Raven Sings the Blues did.
I just saw that he bought like a track on Bandcamp, but I didn't see no write-up.
Yeah, I'll send you the link after, because it was one of the things when I was first checking you guys out that got me interested. But one of the things that he said was, Saguaro is definitely a band to keep your eye on. And that's what has me excited about the future of the project and this upcoming album this year, is because I've loved everything you guys have put out so far. And I can see that there's so much more potential even for growth, for exploring different sounds, for working with different collaborators. So as a fan, I'm just so excited to see what you guys are going to come out with in the next couple years.
Right on. Like I said, I mean, from the start, I appreciate the kind words, and I mean, and I'm speaking for John at this point, but I feel like if you would have asked us like 2 or 3 years ago, like if our music would ever reach anybody, like we probably would have just kind of laughed at that idea. But it's truly moving, to hear that. So so thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Makes me smile. That's sick. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
So that's it. That's the show. Thanks so much to Saguaro for sitting down and talking with me. I had a lot of fun, and it was a good fan experience. As I mentioned, Start Walking came out a few weeks ago. Already had a lot of good reception about that. I've been telling lots of stories about the song and showing lots of behind the scenes on social media. So if you want, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I'm at Ramblin' Nelson. Before we were rolling, actually, John and Jeff were telling me that they were listening to Start Walking and vibing with it, and that it reminded them of the Avett Brothers, which of course is huge for me. Avett Brothers are a big inspiration. So that meant the world to me to hear from them. Thanks to everybody for listening, and as Jeff says, I hope y'all have a blessed week. Peace in the Middle East.